Talk about it with Franjez. Today's special guest is the owner of AJ's Burgers. Today's guest is AJ.
Hello, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Nice to share some thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Let's start off with a little wellness check. How you doing today?
Couldn't have been better.
Good.
Had a great day, got everything done, got here on time, so everything's cool.
I love it. Let's start off with, how were you always so happy? I've only met you twice, but you seem to just be always positive. Where'd that start? Where'd that come from?
It really comes from, you're a result of what you think and what you do. So, it's like, even when I'm driving, it's like these people are leaning into their horns. I feel bad that they have such stress because what's the difference, And you can't change the past. You can't predict the future. You have to be in the moment. And if you make your moment miserable, you're going to be miserable. If you think you're not going to make it, it's going to rain, it's bad. It's like, you know what? You got to enjoy the raindrops falling on your head.
I like that. When do you think you became so enlightened to that positive mindset? Because it's tough. People go their entire lives with never reaching this, appreciation for the present. You said not the future, not the past.
Right.
Literally the
right
present.
Yeah.
Well,
when
did that start for you?
Some of it came from my sister teaches some mindfulness out west. And,
really?
Yeah. So she teaches mindfulness and mindful eating and stuff like that. And she does a lot of home care. And then, my parents were happy. They always found good in every kind of catastrophe. Something's good. So if you look for the good and resonate on the good, your life's going to be good and happy. It's like when I serve people, it's like, I'm not here to argue with you. And if I can't make you happy, there's only thing you have to get. They have to get the hell out if they're that miserable.
I like that. I got nothing else for you. I got
That's
love
it.
and I got food. I love it. Let's start from the beginning. Where were you born?
Born in the Bronx on Townsend Avenue.
All right.
So had a little upbringing over there. We moved out of the Bronx. I was probably around 6 or 7. So I learned to get little chiclets in the gum machines in the subways. My mother toted me around to see grandma and great grandma and that kind of stuff. And then moved to Fleetwood in Mount Vernon and was there for about 4 years. And then got to New Rochelle, New York around 1970.
What age did you leave the Bronx?
Probably around 6.
6, okay.
So I was able to get thems, those, and yous and ruin my English. And everyone's like, where you from? Oh, New York. But it's okay. It's good being from New York.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's an honor being from
Yeah.
here. It's a very beautiful place. So what type of kid were you? What were you into?
Well, I was into sports and I hurt my heel. And then they put like a little lift in my heel. And then I did a little bit of horseback riding, and then I got a taste sort of like the Bronx Tales. I took care of a card game in a bungalow colony where everybody was playing cards. And then, I cleaned the pool. I was like a little pool boy and card guy and used to make them snacks and sandwiches. And they loved me and I loved them. And at the end of the summer, I don't know, I was like 12 years old. I went home with about $2,500 in cash, and I was like the king.
Wow.
And it just came from servicing people. And then, sort of like people like to be complimented and people like to feel good. And all through that, I was getting complicated and feeling good. And then from there, I went to be a busboy at the Thruway Diner. They're gone, but they hired a 12-year-old to bus tables at the Thruway Diner. And then that was it. After that, I was bussing tables Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I got in early. I used to watch The Baker because I wanted to learn how to bake. And then I worked from 10 in the morning to like 6. And if the counter person was sick, they let me work from 6 to the next day. So I learned how to do them 24-hour shifts really young.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah, and then the diner, that was like a madhouse back. That was before everything was computerized and digital, people calling in orders and screaming and yelling, and back in the, probably like the Gordon Ramsay screaming days. And
yeah. Wow. That's impressive. So when did you stop bussing tables and get into the kitchen?
I was probably in 76. I was like 16 years old. I became the assistant chef at the Davenport Country Club. But in between the summers, I was like a busboy in a coffee shop, and then I was a soda jerk in a coffee shop. Now I'm just like a regular jerk in AJ's. And then I was a short order cook in a little coffee shop. And that was like rapid fire puberty and growing up, because now, I'm like 13 years old. I'm hanging out with the 18 years old, and everyone's partying and working and stuff like that. So it was awesome. And then when I wound up at the catering place, the kid that was working there is moving out. He had graduated school. He's moving on to things, and he introduced me to Sullivan County Community College, which started the hotel restaurant career. And then I worked with the assistant chef over there, and he just loved me because I wanted to learn, I wanted to work, got things done, and
nice.
He wanted to take it easy, so he had like a little pony that was able to go do all this stuff. And he used to speak broken English. One of my favorite stories, he says, "Go downstairs, bring me up 2 queso cabbage." Went downstairs because the refrigerator was downstairs. Come back up. "Cheech, there's no cabbage." No, downstairs 2 queso cabbage. Go back downstairs. "Cheech, there's no cabbage. I moved everything. There's no cabbage." He goes, "What are you talking about? I make a 2 queso cabbage." I said, "You mean garbage?" He goes, "What in the hell you think I said? Cabbage." I went downstairs. I got 2 cases of garbage.
Oh man, you learn people's language.
Well,
right?
you learn that. Just the culture was fun, and then he was an older. He used to cook a la carte when he made all the food to order, and as he was getting close to his retirement, he just liked doing weddings because it was a lot simpler. So he showed me a lot of tricks, showed me how to butcher some meat, and I was over there. Gosh, when he left, I became the chef.
Nice.
And then I was the head chef at the country club for a little bit. And
first time being a head chef.
Yeah, that was my first, because I used to do, it's like, if you want the guy's job, do his job. Let him rest. Do the guy's job, and you'll learn all the things. And
absolutely,
it's like,
wow.
And then. Yeah, it was like a little, I look back at it now. The guy said, "Here's the papers." And I had wedding Friday night, Saturday night, one on Sunday. You got to figure out what to order, how to get it, and your prep time. And there was really nobody on top of me. I just sort of banged it out. So it was exciting.
At what age was this?
60. Well, I was probably around 18 when I took the kitchen over myself.
So how are you feeling about school at this time?
I went to Sullivan. My dad got sick, and then I transferred to Westchester County Community College. And way back then, they didn't have such a great hotel restaurant program. I had a little spiff with one of the professors. So I switched to business, and I graduated in Westchester with a business degree. And I wasn't sure if I was going to go to more school. And I took a look at Cornell. It was cold up there. And took a look at Florida, and I still wasn't sure. And
what were you trying to do?
To finish hotel restaurant school, get a bachelor's degree.
I see.
And then I was making crazy money. I was, doing fine. And then my friend said, "So make believe you got arrested, and you could work, party, drink, do whatever you want, but you got arrested and you had to spend 2 years at school. Because why don't you finish your friggin' school?" And he sort of encouraged me to go to school. So then I went to Florida back in the Scarface days.
No way.
Al Pacino came in a restaurant.
No way. When you said Scarface, I thought you meant like when it was actually happening. No, when they were filming.
Yeah, they were filming it. And it was also the Overtown riots were going on. I mean, I was going to work. I was on 95. There was like no traffic. Like, how's this friggin' even possible? And then all of a sudden, a chair comes over the overpass and dumped it on the highway. I was like, totally not thinking about the politics down there.
Wow, tell me about the Scarface. Anything stands out? Any good stories?
I worked at a place called Rogers on the Green, and it was. And
is it on Miami Beach
it's
or anywhere near?
Key Biscayne. So there was a couple of like gangsters that used to eat there all the time, and then back in the day, I had these little plates that were like ashtrays. So I had 2 ashtrays in my pocket. I had ashtray up here, and used to put the ashtray on top of the cigarette and pull it away so you didn't spill ashes when everybody was smoking in restaurants back then. So the kingpin that used to come in was called Juan Sid. I hope he's dead because I don't want to be talking about him.
100%. I hope so too.
It was a long time ago.
I don't know nothing. I don't even know who you are.
And then when he came in, he used to give the cocktail waitress $500, the waiters $100 a piece. And that was a big deal back then. And then these 2 Jamaican guys that worked there forever, and that was like they were like the legend at this dining room. and they always had the same station, same thing, because the rest of us came and went, but these guys were there for years. So Juan Sid comes in one night and they're not there. So now I get to take care of Juan Sid and his little gangster boys. And, I had some experience at Alex and Henry's and stuff like that. I had to, give attentive service and don't listen to a word they're saying. So I had a good time with those guys. And, it was a crazy place. There was a golf course and a club and on middle of Key Biscayne, and
man,
this guy came in with an entourage, and then when I saw Scarface, and then then Al Pacino came in, he had his little entourage, and then the maitre d' took his order, and everyone's buzzing around, but you could see those similarities, when they both walk in, the C's part, and they just do their thing and are in and out. But,
that's impressive.
Yeah, Miami was fun. And then I worked at this little tiny restaurant in Miami where at 5 o'clock at night we were serving the farmers. It was in, it was in the south part of Miami where it was farmland, and it's all getting developed, called the Falls. And then 5, 6 o'clock, so now 7:30, now these kids come in, cut off jeans, flip-flops. These guys are pilots. They're buying wine for $600-$700 a bottle. They're private pilots, and they're my dogs in the car. I used to make a steak and bring it out to the dog.
Wow!
And then, this place, there was a guy from Italy and a guy from Argentina. They were partners, and they called Il Papagallo, the clowns, and they were like two little clowns. But they did some business over there with those kids.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah. Let's rewind a little bit. What food was cooked in the house as a kid?
Well, Jewish household, so my mom made, pot roast, roasted chicken, and back in the day, moms used to go to the butcher store and buy the $65 package. So you had some chopped meat, some roast beef, some chicken, and all that stuff. So we had a day for everything growing up. My mom cooked pretty much all the time. She used to use ragu sauce and doctor it up. So I remember just when my sister's 3 years older, when she went to school and I was in the house with my mother, she made sure me how to make egg salad and little things like that, and everything was salt, pepper, and garlic. And today it's still a lot of salt, pepper, and garlic.
So things don't change.
Yeah. And then she used to make little eggplant casseroles and baked ziti casseroles. Nice. We went out probably once a week as a family to eat. Nice. So it was a lot of food. And then it's just every culture, everything revolves around that food. So we had a lot of traditional stuff going on.
And so what was the interest in cooking? You think it was being in the kitchen with your mother?
I think it was just probably all the compliments I had when I was cooking and everything going so smooth, and then that you sort of just thrive on that. You thrive on that.
Why did you start working at the restaurant that first time? Was it your always interest in food, or to you it was just a job? I was
interested in making some money and not going to day camp, and I just little strive of being independent.
Makes sense. There's not many options for kids to work.
Yeah, because I was 12, and today they're not hiring kids at 12, but 12 I was able to take care of the pool.
That place is closing down if they hire 12.
Oh my gosh, right. This guy's dead too. It's he's here's the chlorine, here's the chemicals, just put this in. If it don't look right, just throw some chlorine around the edge. And it's I'm 12 years old, I got this stuff that could kill me and ruin his pool.
Oh my
God. He's smoking cigars and fishing.
Oh man.
Yeah, he even let me drive the tractor. We used to drive the tractor around the bungalow colony at 13, 14 years old to pick up the garbage. And when my idiot kid, he wants to be I should have been a garbage man. Had pension and retired already. But we used to drive the tractor around to pick the garbage up and get it all staged up for the, public, services to come in, public works to come pick it up.
You're joking, right? Because I think you love food more than you would have preferred to have this route than the garbage man route.
This is good route.
Yeah. Because once you retire, what are you going to do? You would have probably started cooking.
Yeah, no, I
right?
cook almost every holiday.
There you go.
Yeah, enjoy cooking.
All right, so after Miami, or what's the next transition after that?
So then I was in Florida going to school, and then my poor folks, they didn't see me graduate high school because I got into Sullivan County.
If you need a water.
Thanks. I got into Sullivan County Community College without a high school diploma because I only needed an English credit and a gym credit.
Wow.
So when I got to the school, he goes, if you could pass the entrance exam, you could start right away. So then I left high school in my junior year, the end of my junior year, and I went right to my community college. And then went to Westchester, stayed there for a while. But when I got finished at school in Florida, I was recruited by a hotel company. So I never went to the graduation of the college either. Went right to work. So my life always been like right to work. So when I'm dead, I'll be like, "Where's the kitchen?"
In heaven, looking for a kitchen.
Yeah, and then
good.
I worked for this company called Flaughton Manor, and I was assistant GM of a Holiday Inn in Orlando. And actually, it was the first Holiday Inn that was built in Orlando.
No way! Yeah. Wow!
It was on Interstate 50, and it had outside corridors, and it was like a training ground for them. And I worked for them for about a year, and then I saw some of the, the bullshit in their promises and what they were delivering.
Okay.
And then I gave them like my notice, and they wanted to switch me to another hotel and do all this stuff. And I went back to New York. And I went from like this high conformity kind of budget and inventory job, and I went to a place called Torsh's Restaurant in Briarcliff Manor. So I'm there in a suit, a briefcase, a resume, and this guy comes out of his truck with a guinea tee and jeans. He's dirty as hell, just come from off construction. And then he goes, "Can you cook?" I go, "Anything you want." He goes, "All right, come in Friday."
Oh, didn't even look at the resume. No more questions.
That was it. And then it was like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Torsh's, the Fudgies that used to be on Central Avenue.
No.
So this guy was, and they grabbed this guy that had a club in Yonkers called Fudgies, and they're going to make that Torsh's South. And I stayed up in Briarcliff, and I was Torsh's North.
Nice.
Or just regular Torsh's.
Yeah.
And I was there, probably about 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
I was there until I got my own place.
Nice. Very nice.
And then
the first place was the original Wedge Inn?
That was the first big place. In between that, I had a little pizzeria in Ardsley called Chef and the Pizza Man. But the big one was the original Wedge Inn. And
all right, let's not move too fast. Let's go to the pizza place. How was that, doing the initial, opening the first doors?
It was pretty easy because I had a pizza guy that was actually worked at Torsh's. And I told Sal Torsh, I said, "If you don't want to sell me a piece of this business, I'm going to go find my own business." I said, "So you're going to hear it from me." I said, "I'm not going to leave you in a month or a week, like you'll have plenty of time." And then when I started looking, the pizza guy said he wanted to do something, and everybody was copacetic and found a lease, and we took over. It was Sinapi's Pizza in Ardsley, and we went in there. We called it Chef and the Pizza Man. And then,
that's a good name.
Yeah, and that was it. We were there for a couple of years, about a year or so, and then my partner's wife wanted to buy another house and do other stuff. I said, "Listen," I said, "are we going to be partners in the house you're going to buy, or we're just going to be partners here? Because your brain split. And either buy me out or I'll buy you out, because unless we're going to be partners in everything, it's like, you got a girlfriend."
You weren't going to do it alone?
Right.
That's what it is?
Well, yeah, I don't want to do it with a partner. I was thinking about other things. And we wanted to fix a counter. He didn't have no money because you buy another house. Yeah. So it just didn't last that long. And then actually I went back to Torsh's after that.
Okay.
And then I went back there, and then somebody that eats at Torsh's, a guy named Greg DePalma. I don't know if you ever heard of the Westchester Dinner Theater, but one of these old wise guy kind of guys. So he introduced me to the guy that owned the Wedge Inn. And then the Wedge Inn was famous. It was there since 1940, but It was called Junior's. And I had to take Junior's back. So I wasn't the Wedge Inn, but I was able to be called the original Wedge Inn.
Oh.
Because there wasn't a DBA for the original Wedge Inn. So I got that, and I was over there about 7 years.
Nice.
Built it from nothing back to like a thriving business over there.
Nice. So in the pizzeria, what were you serving? Was it just pizzas, or were you doing parms and all that
I did
stuff?
everything, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Cannolis back then and all that?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, eggplant, chicken parms, made some marsala dishes, and some specials.
That's great.
Right. So
nice. So what was the Wedge like?
The Wedge was really trying to be fast food, like fast Italian back in the day, how it was. And then that little thing grew into a continental casual Italian restaurant. So in the beginning, I had pizza rolls, and I had, meatballs, lasagna, stuff like that. I was able to talk to some of the old guys that were there, and they told me they were famous for the steak pizzaiolo. And the steak pizzaiolo was somebody's mom had leftover pot roast. She sliced it up. She put it in tomato sauce with hot cherry peppers, and she called it steak pizzaiolo. That became the staple dish for the Wedge Inn. Like everyone knew the steak pizzaiolo. Hot cherry peppers on the table. So they come there with a friend for the first time and goes, "Oh, try a pepper," and they're waiting to start crying.
Of course, you always got that good friend.
Yeah. And then they used to race there. I don't know if you remember. The Hutch had a toll booth right around exit 7.
No.
There was a toll booth from Pelham Manor line to City Island.
They still do those races.
That was a quarter mile.
There's no toll booth, of course, but I still see street racers.
So they raced there all the time. And they used to go to the Wedge Inn, check out the cars, see what kind of engines, nitro, whatever they had, and they negotiated the bets. And then they went on the highway. They would, make a lane, stop the traffic, give it time, and then... And then they come back, everyone split like fire once in a while. But it was like great because the cops, the criminals, the firemen, everybody came to this place to Wedge in.
Everybody's rubbing elbows.
Yeah, it was right in the middle between the Bronx, the 42nd Precinct, Mount Vernon, and Pelham. And it's just like everybody knew about this place.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we started out just with wedges and sandwiches, and then we were doing Super de Pesce, chicken scarpiello, and filet mignon with roasted peppers, prosciutto, gnocchi, brown sauce. I look at some of the stuff over there. It's like a ton of specials.
Wow. Incredible. And you sold desserts there too?
Yeah, but that's where I learned how to make my cannolis.
So that's when it started.
I was getting my cannoli cream from Bobby Artuso. And then he goes, this is so simple to make. He goes, why don't you just make it? And I'm like, because I don't know how simple it is to make.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to tell his recipe. You got to ask Bobby, but it's only about 3 ingredients with regard to impasata, and you just make it fresh, and it's easy enough to do. And the key is stuffing it to order so those shells stay nice and crisp. And the shells come from Artuso's family. Nice. They make shells for everybody.
So why don't you want to do the shells?
It's just extra steps. And his shells are so good. Yeah, it's just like it's a whole nother recipe and making it and frying it. And it's like one by one. And then we got to get the boxes to keep them in. It's like you get them from Artuso's. They're in this little plastic sleeves. Everyone has their little slot.
They're perfect.
They're covered with plastic. And so it's like,
Nice. Well, what are these desserts you brought here? Are these fillings for it? This looks like the cannoli filling, no?
Yeah, that's brownie with cannoli cream, chocolate chips, and layers.
Wow.
And that's our brownie cannoli.
There's bananas in here?
Oh, that one, I put bananas in there. Where was your brownie cannoli? That I made, that's berries and cream.
Berries and cream. Oh, I do see some blueberries, some chocolate.
Yeah, that's like a healthy kind of dessert if you want to call it. I must have left your brownie cannoli on the counter.
I don't know. There's one here.
That's the one.
So there's brownies and cannoli cream. Wow.
Brownies with cannoli cream and chocolate chips.
That's nice. That looks incredible.
So all that's in mason jars, and when we make it to go, we put them in these 16 ounces.
And what's this one?
Homemade chocolate mousse.
Oh my God, homemade chocolate mousse.
So
and what we got here?
That's just fresh whipped cream because nobody gets fresh whipped cream. You can put it on top of what you're eating, but it's like you take a look at Ready Whip, and the ingredients are cream and sugar. That's cream and sugar. It doesn't taste nothing like Ready Whip.
I bet.
And that's a little Jewish cheesecake.
Jewish cheesecake? Never heard of it.
Well, it's just like the American cheesecake, but it's sort of like that's rice pudding from the Thruway Diner days.
Oh, that's nice. And I see the cinnamon stick in there. Real traditional. I love it. I'm excited. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I definitely want to try this one right now. Let me jump into the next question so I can set myself up. All right, so the Wedge in, and then you realized there was a Burger Gap.
That's it. Well, I sold the Wedge in actually, and then I worked for a dear friend of mine, and I was a food broker, where we were the marketing and sales force for protein companies that wanted to get into the supermarket industry. And we really just did mostly the meat department, but it enabled me to take a look at what they're doing in some of these food facilities that is like astronomical. You see a place that kills 175,000 head a shift. So when they're moving meat through there, it is some kind of factory. And I was at Reese's Fine Foods. It's a potato salad factory, and that's like the Willy Wonka of potato salads. But I did that for about 10 years, and I saw the giant burger void. And that was the rising time of Five Guys. And I was sort of intrigued. No, thank you. Okay. I was intrigued with Five Guys because they had this board menu, that simple stuff, and, it was just like a couple of steps above McDonald's and your typical fast food joints. And then I said, something like that, it'd be great. What are you on, the berries and the...
Banana, berries, chocolate, cream.
Everything
Wow,
but
this is
peanuts. You got to put some peanuts in there. I didn't know.
I
Everyone's
like
allergic
that.
to peanuts.
You're right. You got to be safe, right? Wow, I never would have thought cream, blueberries, banana, and chocolate would have been this good.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
like a healthy dessert.
Incredible.
So back to my burger story. So I see this big void, and then when I
What do
grew
you
up,
mean by so big void? Is it because the people coming to buy stuff aren't making burgers?
I was just living in New Rochelle.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, where do people go out for burgers? There used to be Uncle Meg's. There used to be Piper's Kilt is still there, still strong. And at that point, I mean, Five Guys went from a few stores to 120 stores in a couple of years. And there was a void really for a great burger joint. And the diners were getting more expensive and not so much concentrating on the quality. So then I was working in the meat industry, and I found myself what I thought was the best chop meat from my mentors. And I got this great chop meat. I developed my Chipotle sauce and, made a business plan. And the first place I really wanted to get was tiny. It would have looked like a place called White Manor. You ever hear of a place called White Manor?
No.
White Manor is in Hackensack, New Jersey on River Road, and they make these little sliders.
Okay.
And that's when I first opened up. I had these little sliders, and they were too inexpensive to have people come in and just have two sliders.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get enough check average. But the interesting story about these sliders, when I tasted these sliders, I was traveling around New Jersey visiting all the Pathmarks and ShopRites. And I eat this freaking burger, and it's just like, it looks like the Walters hot dogs of burgers. It's so unique. The guy that owned the place is Eli Cohen. My name's Alan Cohen. He picked this up from the World's Fair. It was the futuristic diner in the World's Fair in Queens, and he moved it to Hackensack to sell sliders.
Okay.
So I took sliders that went from Queens to Hackensack, and I brought them back to New Rochelle. And I started making these little sliders. When I first opened, the sliders were $1.69. We used to sell 3 sliders and a soda with fries and had all this stuff under $10. It's something. In 17 years, it's like doubled.
Oh, my God. For real.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
So this is the same location you're at now?
Yeah. I've been at AJ's Burgers for 17 years now.
Do you still have the sliders on the menu?
We do the sliders for parties, and you have to buy trays of 20. And in-house, I make a quarter-pound slider.
Okay.
Which is $11. So when people came in and they had those little sliders, and somebody wants a slider and share a fry, it's like, you can't eat at McDonald's for that. I there's not enough money to pay for the rent, the soap, the utilities. People, how come everything's so expensive? Well, you know why it's so expensive? Is because we use Fabuloso, we got to wash the bathrooms, got to wash the floors, you buy ammonia, you buy mops, nobody sees all this other stuff. Just think about the expenses of your house. It's like, water doesn't leak because you fix the roof every 25 years. Well, where does that come from? You got to, everything in that building costs money.
We're not cutting corners.
Right.
We're using top quality ingredients. Even the cleaning products are quality. Let people know everything here is quality. That's why you love coming here. Sorry the prices match my quality, but that's my price. Why New Rochelle? Is it because you lived there?
I was looking in Westchester, and I was looking for spots. And the first place I was looking at is where the smokehouse was. I don't know if you know the big smokehouse.
I do.
They were across the street in this little place called the Crave Cave.
Okay.
Or the Crave. I was looking at this little building, negotiated a deal. Everything was going to go along fine. The guy that owned the building sold the building. And the new guy was going to only give me like a 2-year lease. And I didn't want to go there for a 2-year lease because there was too much money that needed to put in to do what I wanted. And then I'm in a spot that used to be called OB's. And back in my day, it was called Tammany Hall.
Okay.
And it was just an empty building. And then everything was for sale, and we took a look at it. Actually, I did like that proverbial style. I walked in there, had a little piece of paper, and I drew the plans out, and I knew in 20 minutes pretty much how I wanted to look and what it was going to do. Not that I didn't make 100 little minor changes in between all that, but was able to basically draw it out. In fact, when I brought the stuff to the architect, he had blueprints. I knew where I wanted every plug, pipes, and like where the drainage was going to be, because the School of Hard Knocks teaches you all that and a little bit of education.
Experience.
Yeah. So
it all led up to where you are now. Every little piece of knowledge, yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It shows. I had not one person say anything negative about your place, your food, nothing. Incredible.
Thank you.
Everybody's in agreeing with my reaction from that review.
That's great.
So we spoke briefly the day I went to the restaurant about social media and learning all of that, because now there's not really ads on TV and stuff. Talk a little bit about that. When did you realize this is the big shift, and what are you doing to proactively, be out there?
Well, the big shift was, it's so sad that everyone's like 95% of their times, free time is going to spend in front of a screen. So everyone's on the screen. The TV, when I was at the Wedge Inn, we did some commercial TV advertising, and I saw how great that was. And then when social media, Facebook was free, and then Instagram came in, and everything's free. And it's like, that wasn't going to last forever. And then somehow I ran across Gary Vee.
I watch him a lot.
And Gary Vee was also really big on having empathy. So he sort of, like, when I say, like, why am I happy? Because you just got to be happy. It's like, if you want to move out because you hate your parents, well, move out. But then you're going to have to live with 3 guys, and you're not going to have a clean bathroom or whatever. So you got to figure out which happy you want.
Yeah.
It's like, right? Life's hard.
100%.
Right? Exercise is hard. Well, not being able to stand up when you're 65, that's harder. So you have to choose your heart. But in any case, Gary Vee was all about, it doesn't have to be perfect. Get your content out there. Don't let the haters ruin your life, because they're always going to be haters. And get your stuff out there. So he was big on, like, at the beginning, I was like, it don't have to be perfect. I just got stuff out there. And then just watching it and watching other people grow. And that's how I found you. I said, like, looking at viral things and guys that had great content and great skills like you have.
I appreciate it.
Reached out, and that's how we met.
Yeah. That's the future and the present.
Yeah.
Everyone's online. You're smart for jumping into it. But, Gary Vee, he's all about business and, helping business owners, be online, be findable for people that are looking for you.
Right. And I don't even have time to do all the things that he's preaching to do. But
yeah, he's talking about posting every platform every day. Multiple
and then
posts a
DMing
day.
people and keeping the reaction and the engagement going. And, he used to say, it's like, people look at him now and he's rich, he's not doing nothing. He goes, you know why? He goes, when I was in high school, like his little story about his jet sweater and my friends were out partying. I was up to 2 o'clock.
In his father's wine store.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, he had that, that old European standard of you're going to work and you're going to do good. And if you want, and then he wasn't even that great in school, but he was good at what he did.
Business, yeah.
So I had some of that too. I wasn't as smart as I am.
Well, but you actually made it through college, which is impressive because you starting in the restaurant business at 12 and still being in it. I really assumed you didn't even think about college because you found what you wanted to do, but you still went to college.
Yeah.
So what was the real dream job with that college degree?
At one point I thought I was going to get on the boat and travel and like learn how to cook and do stuff like that. And after I was cooking for a while, college, I learned more of the business administration part, and that was, marketing and some of the stuff that I'm using, like some of those skills I'm using today. And then you just learn so much about people, when you're in there. And then,
But what was the dream job with that degree?
Because I think I always wanted to get my
own
own
a business.
Place. Nah, when I went to
own
work
it and cook it.
Yeah, when I worked for the big company, I thought maybe that was going to be okay. So I gave the corporate world a shot, and I really didn't like the politics and the bullshit that was in it, because they have a carrot in front of the horse, and it's not really the carrot you're looking at. It's switching bait, and maybe some corporations are different, but the longer I live, the more you learn. It's like all these guys that think they're so vanilla and sterile. They're really not. But, and then I just, I knew I could cook. I knew I could get it done, and owning my own place was going to be the dream.
Amazing. I love it. Your story is inspirational, 100%. What's the hardest lesson that restaurant business has taught you?
I think that, and I think I've learned it, but I haven't implemented yet, is to emotionally detach yourself from the menu and from the things that you think are great. When I used to sell meat to the supermarkets, they would have to cover up the item description and take a look at how many they sold a week. And if it was under, let's say, 20, you discontinue the item.
You just worry about the numbers.
And it goes, if the people aren't buying it, you don't need it in the store. It's clutter. And if you declutter your world, and my sister talks about decluttering all the time, if you declutter yourself, you're going to have a much more peaceful and easier life. So somewhere in the near future, I'm going to declutter some of my stuff. And you just have to be strong enough at that point emotionally and mental health-wise that I'm going to take it off the menu. As soon as I do that, everyone's going to say where it is. And you're like, I don't have it anymore. It's like, we were open for breakfast. Someone said, oh, you don't open for breakfast anymore? I go, we haven't. I go, when's the last time you were here for breakfast? I don't know, maybe 7 years ago. I go, that's why I'm not open for breakfast anymore. Because I was waiting for you for 6.5 years. And then I finally said, you know what? They ain't coming.
They're not coming. Right? Oh, man, that's a good one. When's the last time you even looked for me for breakfast? Oh, man. What are people getting wrong when they open restaurants today?
Well, I think that the restaurant business is a little bit inviting for everyone because we've all been eating since we came out of the... Before we got out of the womb, everyone's eating and everyone's a food expert and everybody knows what's delicious. And they really do. You know what's delicious for you.
For you, absolutely.
But people think, oh, it's going to be so simple. I'm going to get a restaurant. I'm going to hire a chef. I'm going to hire a manager. I'm going to hire a waiter. And these are people that haven't hired anyone in the past few years. Because today, most industries are crying for help. So our culture, I believe, has really taught the kids that work is not the most important thing in your life. And it doesn't have as much value as it did when I grew up. And plumbers looking for work. Electricians looking for work. Carpenters looking for work. Everybody's looking for work. And, that is the scary part. And then after that, not realizing how much money they need to open up the doors and stay there. Because, you run out of money fast when you're not making profit and you have perishable stuff. You open up a liquor store, you don't sell the liquor, it's still there.
It's still there.
You buy food for a restaurant, you don't sell it.
It's not there no more. Well, your fridge is empty now.
I opened up 2008. And they used to say, here comes AJ with a bag of sliders. Because when I opened up the store, that was the week they closed the banks. So the guy that had $100,000 in his 401k, he woke up the next day, he had 50. Now, Chris Rock used to say, if you got $17 million and you wake up and you got $8 million, you're still okay. But if you got $50,000 and you wake up with 25, you're not so okay. So for the casual restaurant industry in 2008, it was tougher because everyone said, I'm not spending $15 for lunch every day. And you start adding up those numbers and, that sort of took a but I gave away more food than I sold when I first opened the door because I wasn't going to freeze it and sell bad food. And when I had the steam table set up, when I first opened, we had like hot mashed potatoes, hot mac and cheese, everything was hot. And after 3.5 hours, cooled it down and I gave it away because I wasn't going to build my business with, it's old food, but it's all right. It's not old food and it's all right. And, it's just like, the health department lets you cool it down and reheat it. But, if the procedures aren't followed really strictly, you could get people sick. And I'm not worried about following the procedures. Well, I'm worried about following procedures strictly, but I'm more concerned about giving people quality food, not, something that's been hot, cold, reheated, that kind of stuff. So I gave away a bunch of food.
Wow.
Gave a bunch of sliders. My son was driving around. I gave him 15 sliders in the bag. I said, here's 3 bags. When you come back, there'll be another 3 bags. And my guys didn't understand what the hell I was doing.
Like, this guy's nuts.
He lost his mind.
So do you think that is what helped you through those tough times? Because it's like you're giving it out. People are knowing about you this way. They're learning about you, right?
That's it. There was a place in Miami on Collins Avenue called the Rascal House. And I believe it's still there. And one of the, wasn't alive for it, but his little story is why they call him the Rascal House, is because when he first opened his store, he said there'll be no checks. No checks, food's free. he had a line around his building the day that he had his grand opening, and the line still exists. If there's still the line was there forever. And he had little aisles. This is for 2, this is for 6, this is for 4. You went in different rows to line up to get into his place. And, you know, he did some great things. He had one guy that walked around. The only responsibility was to make sure you had water, bread, and butter.
Who?
One of his bus people.
No, who had water, bread, and
the customers.
Oh, so it wasn't just sliders and
no. This was a full Jewish blown out deli.
I see, a full deli.
And it was Wolfie Cohen's Rascal House. And when he opened up, he gave away free food. Developed this, you know, that's why they call him the Rascal, because then free food, everyone running there for free food. So how could he do it? So whether he spent $5,000 or $10,000, he took all his money and said, I'm going to double down, gave away free food. The media's talking about it. The customers are talking about it. Everyone had a great time.
The customers' families are hearing about it. The customers' friends are hearing about it.
And then when it's free now, like, you know, people have more understanding. I'm sure everything was good because he had a great product.
Yeah.
But even inside his place, he had somebody walking around making sure you always had a glass of water and you always had a pat of butter. He didn't want to waste butter. So in those days, they weren't pre-wrapped. So he had a little bowl of butter and everyone got one pat of butter at a time. You finished that, he gave you another one. And then you never had to look for water. So it's like, that's one of my little pet peeves in the thing. It's like, I want to anticipate your needs so you don't have to look around and ask for anything.
Wow.
So everything should be there for you.
You ever think about teaching all of your knowledge? Because someone like we were just talking, these new business owners, they jump into it just thinking higher, 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 higher. Everything's going to be perfect. I know what tastes good. But that's not true with all of your experience. You ever think about teaching or anything like that?
Yeah, I do. Well, I do some lessons with Taste of Westchester, which is
good.
like a course. Donna Olson is running this Taste of Westchester through Westchester County Community College. I do some mozzarella classes.
Nice.
And then when I'm ready to retire, maybe I'll would teach or do something like that.
Yeah, that's true. When you retire, yeah, keep yourself busy.
Yeah, so that's not really retiring, right?
Nah, yeah, retiring sucks.
But you never go to work.
Idea,
right.
the dream of retiring is what's not good.
Well, that's because they teach people the wrong thing.
Yeah, yeah. Retire on a beach, put your feet up, you're good to go. It's horrible.
That's the picture.
That is the picture. That's the dream. I guess that's the American dream, right? That's not really a worldwide dream. I think that's the American dream.
You ever hear that little story about the fisherman? He used to catch fish in the Dominican Republic and come back with all the fish. You heard this joke?
Absolutely, but please tell it.
So now he's catching all this fish, and the guy says, "Oh my gosh, what do you do with all this fish?" He goes, "Well, I give some to my friends. I have dinner, play with my grandchildren. We go to the village, we sing, we have a couple of drinks, and the next day I go and catch more fish." He goes, "If you know where these fish are, we're going to make a lot of money with this fish." So this poor guy goes from this one boat and this lifestyle to eventually he has 3 factories. He's working day and night. And the guy says, "You know what?" He goes, "Next year, you're going to retire." He goes, "Well, then what do I do?" He goes, "Get a small boat. You'll go fishing. You'll go home. You'll play with your..." So you could be retired when you're retired. You just need to find that happiness.
You got to find the thing.
Yeah.
You got to find the thing. Absolutely. What keeps you inspired all these years?
Well, I love getting up and being able to learn more. I'm always looking at different things, different styles. And, you know, my encyclopedia got replaced with Google. And it's easy to, look up particular chefs or techniques and stuff like that. And, food's always moving around. So, and then I taught a ton of people. Guys that work for me, there's one guy in Mexico has his own restaurant. There was a guy in City Island. There's a guy making pizza at Mama Francesca's in New Rochelle. So I have a little bit of a legacy of the people that went through me, and I enjoy seeing my guys. They're making product as though I was making my product. So that keeps it going, and then just, want to get up, and I like to eat every day. I like to live, right? So
I like that. I like to
and
eat
the other
every
thing
day.
is, in this business, the hospitality, you want to make people happy. And if you don't want to make people happy and you don't thrive on that, this is the wrong business. Because I work with guys, "I'm a chef, I'm not going to serve that guy." And it's like, if that's really how you feel, this may not be the industry for you.
Not at all. It's definitely a people industry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's crazy that people even say that. I'm not serving that guy. Get out of your ego. Get out of your own way.
It happens.
What is the Art Fest Classic Car Show?
New Rochelle has an art fest where they have schools and community and artists and music, and they have a trolley and it goes through New Rochelle, and they did a little bit, I think, with Pelham. And through, I don't know, 10 years, I guess they've been doing it or so, we sponsored a classic car show.
Oh, nice.
There was Michael Dindry was famous with the cars, and he really was a catalyst. Now he was Nick from Ace Auto, Nick Pagani. But these guys, they know what year the car was built, how many were made, where the carburetor is, where the metal came from. I mean, they are like car enthusiasts. And we used to have just cars from different eras, and I sponsored the show.
Nice.
And then that's how the Art Fest affected AJ's Burgers. And those days we were busy because I rented the parking lot. I paid to have a permit across the street from the restaurant, and that's where they put the 30, 35 cars. And it was a stop through one day of the Art Fest. It was a one-day show.
Very nice. And you were serving food at the fest?
Well, I gave the guys that came to the car show, I bought them lunch, so that sort of inspired them to want to come, because a lot of times they go to a car show, they just go because they love cars.
100%.
So it was a little extra perk for those guys. And then, people looking forward to it. People, they want to come into the car show, and now someone else handles who's coming and what cars they're bringing, because I don't even know. Like,
let them handle
right.
it.
That's a whole little, community of car people.
Yeah.
And, he goes, I don't want to see the same cars every year. He, mixes it up, and it has to be, between, 1920 and 1940. And then, or it has to be convertible one year. And it's keeps changing it up.
Nice,
So
nice.
that's always fun.
Absolutely. When it comes to social media, Instagram, and where else are you?
Instagram, Facebook, and I started touching YouTube.
Good.
And I just need some more practice and start to get some of my stuff into the YouTube shorts. And
Absolutely. Even the full form, I think you would do great at.
well, maybe
You have
one
the
of these
personality
days.
and you have the content. You have the cooking is the
Thank you.
content.
Yeah.
The love, definitely. And what's the Instagram so everybody can follow?
AJ's Burgers on Instagram and AJ's Burgers on Facebook.
Nice. Awesome. Let the people know anything you have coming up or any last advice you want to leave the people with?
Well, do what makes you happy, and then you'll always be happy. Don't do stuff that doesn't make you happy. And then you want to eat, come to AJ's. You're going to find something you love, or you'll just have to get the hell out.
I love that. Find what makes you happy and do that, or you won't be happy. How simple is
That's it.
that?
Yogi Berra, right?
I love it. That's incredible. Thank you very much for coming by with a great conversation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And thank you to everybody that watched. Peace and love.
All right.